All right, so I can't explain how excited I am to do what I'm doing right now. And I want to open this by saying welcome to the first episode of the Black Powder Podcast. Our guest tonight is Redstone Firearms own Jonathan, and let's get into it.
How you doing?
Word up. So we spoke ahead of time, and like I said, I've been following you a while on Instagram, and my thing is the training. You know, not everybody, but not anybody. A lot of people can go buy a firearm, but when they get that firearm, do they truly know the tool that they possess? Yeah, I'm sure they know it could kill someone, but do they know what they can do with it and how to use it? And I just want to know, what's the origin story of Redstone Firearms?
So it's a combination thereof, my story and my wife's story. Excuse me. For me, my instance, I started shooting when I was 5 years old. That was something my grandfather got me into. I started competition shooting at 6. So from there, I've done quite a bit of things. You know, with that being said, I've got over 30 years of experience with firearms, right?
Nice.
Done the California State Military Reserve thing, done a multitude of law enforcement from different agencies, you know, until this opened up and it was like, wait a minute, you know. So with that being said, my wife's story, you know, coming out of her first marriage, domestic violence situation, etc. You know, we both were into firearms. I've been into firearms pretty much my entire life, and I had a couple bad experiences at one of the local chain gun stores. My wife had the same type of issue at that same chain gun store, and got to the point where we're like, you know what, we need to figure out how we can go ahead and do this on our own. So I did some research, did what I needed to do, and figured out the licensing portion of it. We started as a home-based dealer. That's what we were doing. Right. We were selling FFL firearms out of the house. Exactly. Yeah. And we were doing things for guys I knew that were in the military, you know, guys I grew up with, guys that, you know, I had a circle of people. And then it just got to the point one day we were like, oh, we've got way too many guns in the house. We need to, you know, figure that out. So that's how we came to be with our first store, which was in Burbank also.
Awesome. You kind of touched on something that I've experienced myself with a local Southern California chain firearm store, you could say, or, you know, outdoors, and then like one of those stores.
Right.
So yeah, I remember going into one of those stores and being completely ignored, or when I went into the store, I would tell them what I wanted and not necessarily question why I wanted it, like the feedback I got, but because I was so specific and saying what I wanted, they kind of were taken aback. So I feel that, and I know, like, I have some Mexican homies that went into a local Southern California chain outdoor store and whatever, and we shared those same experiences. So
yeah,
I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, because we are actually skipping to the third subject, and we're coming back around to the second one. We're skipping to the third, but I what is it like being a Black man in this industry, as far as, you know, behind the scenes? I know what it's like as a Black man being a consumer, but what is it like in the actual industry, the gun industry, for you?
It's not horrible, but it's not easy either. Right. Starting off, as you guys probably know, my name is very Jewish-like. So it's not an issue until they put a face to the name.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So once you put the face to the name, then it becomes, wait a minute. I don't know if we can. I don't think we should. Like, well, there was no issue until y'all saw us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that started off even earlier than our store, because as a home-based dealer, you're just that, you're home-based. So a
Right.
lot of the distribution companies and things like that, they wouldn't even mess with us. They wouldn't rock with us at all. There's very few companies that would. I want to say we probably only started off with like 3 distributors. Anderson Manufacturing was one, Davison's was another, and RSR was another. That's and I'm sorry, Lipsy's, so 4. That's the only people that will rock with us. So we had a very limited source of firearms and accessories and things to supply to the folks that were coming to us.
Word.
So our first year going to SHOT Show, which is the biggest international weapons show, ever.
Yeah.
I would be 100% honest with you, and I would say out of everybody that was there was less than 8% of us. And we're getting looked at, going up to the booths and stuff like that, and we're getting looked at like, why are you here? Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Yeah. But going through what I've gone through, my wife gone through what she's gone through, it was just kind of like, okay, you guys are one of them. You're one of those situations.
Right.
So, we took it with a grain of salt. We've had plenty of racist issues that have happened. The Nazi lowriders showing up, white supremacists showing up to the shop. Just all type of stuff. So that's kind of what got us to where we are now, because I'm that dude that you're not gonna tell me no and think I'm not gonna figure out a way to get it done.
Right. When those certain people showed up to your shop, was it the awkwardness? Did they actually buy anything from you? I actually want to know.
So no, they didn't buy anything from us. It was more of an intimidation factor.
Yeah.
But I've spoke on this before on other people's shows, and I was the very first incident that we had, I was already having one of those days where I was just like, I don't want to be bothered, because I was still working a full-time job. My wife was still working a full-time job, and we're trying to run the shop and the kids and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I was already on one that day. And I was sitting there talking to my buddy on the phone, because it was slow in the shop. And I'm like looking at all these motorcycles pass by the shop, because I'm standing at the front window looking out. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Well, the first couple of motorcycles stopped and blocked the street on the far side of the shop. And then some more stopped and blocked the street on the other side of the shop. And they get off their bikes and start walking up to the front door. And I told my buddy, I'm like, here we go. And he's like, what you mean? I'm like, I'm about to get some visitors. So he's still in my earpiece, and I'm still talking to him. Guy comes up and basically said it very blunt and very frank. You N-words should not be selling guns. Y'all don't need to have firearms. Wow. What are you doing? And I stopped there. I was like, you know what? And I said, look, I'm not in the mood for this shit today. I'm not. So I did one of these numbers. I'm like, okay, it's about 14, 15 of y'all. I kid you no lie. I drew my weapon just enough. I press checked it, and I said, I got about 15 rounds. That's one for each one of y'all. Y'all want to get down today? Let's get down today. And the guy that was standing next to the guy that was talking to me, he looked at him and was just like, this motherfucker is crazy. like, did he really just say that? And they was like, all right, we'll be back. You better believe we'll be back. They never came back, but it was one of them days I was just like, I'm not about to do this with y'all today. Like, not today.
The whole time you were telling me that, before you told me what you did, I was like, I want to ask him what his go-to was. Because I'm like the Mossberg 590A1. That's my favorite firearm on earth right now.
Okay.
And I got the one with the Magpul furniture, and I put a little thingamabobs on it. I actually have a review of it on YouTube. But anyway, that's what I was thinking. Like, first thing I was like, oh, this is on. So,
Yeah.
like me, that would have been my go-to. But you're saying you would have went with a pistol in that situation?
I will take a page out of Denzel's book.
Oh,
I'm surgical with that.
okay.
That's just what it is. All right.
Yeah, I got
And I was carrying Glock 23, 40 cal. At that time, I'm still am, but at that time I was exempt from the caliber, from the capacity rules.
Right.
So, I was good. So, yo, y'all want to do this today? We can do it today. Just let's go.
That's some Deacons for Defense shit from back in the day. A lot of people don't realize that there were a lot of black men that stood up during that civil rights era with firearms, and they would show up to places where the Klan would show up, and everything ended peacefully.
Right.
Because a lot of people, you see a lot of people, I'm not singling out white supremacists, but you see them training, but there's one factor in their training, and it's return fire. And a lot of people don't think about that, because they're not doing cover nor concealment in these training videos that I'm seeing. They're out there acting like they're just going to sweep the whole field of any foes, and people are just going to be running back and forth like, please don't shoot me. They're not.
Right. They're acting as a suppression team. Yeah.
Exactly. Like somebody that knows what they're doing and is going to be putting shots on target, because there's one factor that a lot of people don't take into consideration in possible scenarios of civil unrest, is you can't take casualties. Your combat effectiveness is going to lessen really quick.
Yeah, it goes downhill real fast.
Real fast. And I don't look forward to that. I don't want any of that shit to happen. 100%.
Right.
But there's one aspect of survival that all humans need to take into account, and that's basically, you need to be ready, because you don't know how ready the other person is, so to speak.
Exactly. Absolutely. I will say that is one of the mantras. And like you said, you've seen our videos, you've seen, other interviews and things. And that's one of the mantras that we teach, right? It's because you don't know if that person that's coming to rob you, steal, kill, whatever, you don't know what type of training they may have. You don't know what type of mindset they may be in.
Right.
But you need to be able to be in the mindset of, I'm going to do what I need to do to put shots on target to end the threat.
Right.
And that's just what it is, regardless of who it is.
Well, you said you guys are in Burbank, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, sir is my dad. So you guys weren't affected. I know the LA County Sheriff was shutting down a lot of gun stores at the beginning of the pandemic. You guys, since you're under municipal law enforcement or whatever, were you guys subject to any of those shutdowns or anything like that?
So theoretically speaking, yes, but because I'm be 100% honest with you, because the sheriff of LA County, he gets it. It may take a little talking, but he gets it. So after the initial, hey, we don't know really what's going on, we're shutting everybody down, this, that, and the other. Some deputies came by and said, hey, we're going to need to shut you down, da, 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 da. And I know ourselves and one of the other gun stores in Burbank was like, okay, we're not shutting down till, it's decided, right? Yeah. Which it was a cordial conversation. Again, I know a lot of those guys or whatever, and they're like, you know what, we ain't gonna press the issue. So from that point forward, after he did try to shut the gun stores down, and it was a couple of things that happened, he was like, you know what, no, and I actually believe it came out. It was either ATF or the White House that put out a briefing saying gun stores are considered essential businesses.
Right.
And from that point forward, there was no more. there was nothing from the county, nothing from the city, nothing from the state.
I'm not anti-law enforcement. My dad was LAPD for a while. My best friend of 30 plus years is a sergeant up in the Bay Area. My uncles that didn't have my last name were cops that my dad worked with. But I'm not a big fan of Villanueva and the way he did things with the gun stores, because at the same time they were telling people or firearm stores or stores that sold firearms that they need to shut down. They were releasing people out of county jail.
Yep.
And
and on the state level, I don't know if you know that.
Yes, they were. Yeah,
that's a friend of mine that I've known for years. I mean, at least 20 years. Unfortunately, she got herself into a situation. She was doing time, and she was actually released 2 years early because of that.
Yeah, and if you're gonna release criminals and prevent people, especially the suckers that didn't buy ammo years prior.
Didn't have no type of stockpile.
Yeah, just keep a basic level of ammo. Everything above that is for shooting, but you don't go below this level. For those people who I call ants, well, not ants, but grasshoppers, because that old fable of the ants and the grasshoppers all summer long, the ants stocked up, and then when winter came, they were good to go.
Yeah.
But the grasshoppers all summer long, they were just enjoying the days and not preparing for bad days coming. But those grasshoppers that weren't ready, that started driving up the prices because they started panic buying and all that stuff, that's where I had the problem, because even with their actions where they did not prepare for this situation, they still have the right to self-defense.
Absolutely.
And just like people going out and buying water and toilet paper, I'm not saying panic buying was the answer by any stretch of the imagination, but these people that were ill prepared should have the opportunity at bare minimum to prepare for whatever. I don't like tooting my own horn, but I'm gonna toot it damn well anyway. I started reading about this virus in November of 2019.
Yep.
And I started prepping, and it was only on household goods because, like I said about the ammo level, there's a certain level I feel I need to have that I will not go beneath. And if I can't actively go shooting, I'm going to do some other stuff. There's other things you can do. So that's the way I saw it. But I started prepping in December of 2019, and early January, I even posted on Instagram on January 25th, 2020, and where I had bought N94 masks, because I was like, this is a potential calamity. Any historian will tell you these things happen every 80 to 100 years.
Yep, they repeat themselves over and over again.
Over and over again, because we live in an ever-evolving world. People can have their religious preferences, but Mother Nature rules the game at the end of the day. And viruses are part of Mother Nature. And if it's God's plan, it's God's plan, however you want to surmise the situation. But this was bound to happen. And for nobody preparing, because we had the scares with the swine flu, we had the scares with SARS. I work in the IT industry, and we had people come up from Taiwan during the SARS epidemic. And I'm like, why are you putting me in the same room with these people back then? And crazy enough, the dude was wearing a mask back then. So none of this stuff is new. It's just like, our education system has eliminated critical thinking from a lot of the curriculum, and it's showing these days, because I'm not saying the government should be doing this, that, or the other thing. I'm just saying we as a people need to be prepared for these potential calamities. And that's where we go to firearms as being an aspect of that preparation.
Right.
You're honestly, what people are doing that don't own firearms are counting on the goodwill of total strangers.
That is absolutely true. And I will take this all the way back to when we first started our preppers group, because we have a preppers group as well. We
Uh-huh.
got about 100 members. And when we had the wildfires going on, where
Right.
California was just burning,
Yeah.
that's exactly that same premise is exactly what people were expecting and not getting from
Right.
their neighbors or their friends or whoever else. They're like, you on your own.
Precisely.
And you need to figure out who's gonna be friend and who's really gonna be foe, because when it hits the fan, guess what? Like you said earlier, you're not gonna have that group of people with you if you're not doing the activities that are indicative of having that group of people with you.
Word.
And that's just what it is. And that's the God's honest truth. And I would tell you, we came across so many people that we had tried to become part of our preppers group years earlier.
Uh-huh.
The moment they hit the fan,
They were coming
oh,
through.
can we and we're like, didn't we have this conversation 2 years ago?
Right.
Like, you
Yeah.
know, well, can I pay to expedite it? No, that's not how California works.
Oh,
There is no
yeah.
expedite.
I saw
Yeah,
your
there's no
post. I know
expediting in the
exactly what
background.
I saw that post.
You
I'm
can't
pretty
do
sure.
that.
Yeah. Well, because
So,
what I was telling people is Hurricane Katrina. The
uh-huh,
government had 2 solid weeks of forewarning of where that hurricane was going to land and
right,
how hard it was going to land. And you know, I actually did the math. I've spoken on this quite a bit. But basically, at the time Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, it had the same population as Long Beach, California, which was
okay,
just under 500,000, something like that. Now, the vast majority of those people got out of Dodge, the overwhelming majority. And like I can't precisely quote the population, but when I did my calculations, roughly I left 10% of the population there, so to speak, so you can kind of gauge what the population was. But I said there was less than 80,000 people, well less than 80,000 people left in New
wow,
Orleans. Most of those people were destitute, poor. They couldn't get on the bus. They couldn't drive their car. They couldn't get out of Dodge. They couldn't do anything.
right. They have a way out of there.
They didn't have a way out. So after it hit, the levees broke, everybody was underwater. The government's response to that situation took over 2 weeks. And the vast majority of people that died in those 2 weeks, not during the storm, not during the overwhelming forces of nature that hit that couple days it went through there. They died afterwards.
Right. The
The
initial
gov-
incident didn't cause their deaths. It was the
no,
aftermath.
it was the aftermath. So in California, we face earthquakes, and they have a early warning system now that gives you less than 30 seconds of warning before an earthquake hits, but that's not sufficient enough to prepare for if we had the big one. Now, if you
Right.
take LA County, Orange County, San Bernardino County, and Riverside County alone, you're talking roughly 15 to 17 million people. So if the government couldn't help less than 100,000 people when they had 2 weeks warning, how in the hell are they going to help 15 to 17 million people once a big earthquake hits a large urban area like the Southern California area where we live? And if you think you're going to dial 911 and think the fire department or the police are going to come to help you within 1 month, 2 months, even 3 months after the fact of a devastating natural disaster like that, which is I'm not throwing stuff in the air or against the wall to see what sticks.
Right.
Eventually, that will happen. May not be in our lifetime, may not be in our children's lifetime, but eventually it's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that, because at one of the bases where I was stationed down in Los Alamitos, OES, the Office of Emergency Services, was there,
Right.
and I've been in the talk, and I'm looking around like, Yeah, the resources are not there, man.
No.
They're just not there.
Yeah. How do you get water to that many people? How do you get ice to that many people? How do you get medical care to that? I mean,
Yeah,
California is roughly the size of Iraq, and we saw the the ability of the government to secure that area, um, and it was a man-made disaster, so to speak.
yeah, exactly. I will say this because uh emergency logistics is one of my fields of study, and
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna be 100% honest with you and say you are going to basically be, if something was like to happen like that here, you're basically going to be on an island by yourself, and you better be self-sufficient.
For an extended period of time,
Absolutely.
right? So, not to switch gears, but this has a lot to do with the same subject matter, which is your personal safety. The Supreme Court is going to hear a case out of New York next month about their CCW laws and their ability to carry, out of the state of New York, citizens
Right.
of New York ability to carry firearms outside of their home. Now, I don't know. Do you do CCW courses?
Yes.
I
Yes, we
saw
do.
that.
Yeah, we do out of state, and we're waiting for the sheriff's department to approve our California curriculum so we can teach the California portion.
What do you think the like I have my wishful thinking outcome of that case. Um but in your professional opinion, how do you think that case will affect the California CCW laws, particularly in LA County, because I know they're a tad bit more strict than they are in San Bernardino County where I am.
Right. Honestly, I don't necessarily think either way is going to affect California too much because California is pretty much on that gun island by themselves.
Right.
But it's definitely going to affect the states that don't have a shall issue ruling in place. And quite frankly, if it goes the way that I think it's going to go, I actually think it's going to go in favor of allowing for pretty much anybody that can legally possess a firearm to legally be able to carry a firearm
Mhm.
to be able to do so. Just for the simple fact that if you look at the shift from law enforcement now to where it is, I'm sorry, law enforcement previously to where it is now,
Uh-huh.
the liability of law enforcement is not necessarily for them to protect you, it's
Right.
for them to come in and clean up the mess afterwards, right?
Avengers. I tell
So
people that all the time.
yeah, and with that being said, what better way for them to remove the liability, the myriad of liability off of them than to put it onto you? You're responsible for your own self-protection. We'll come clean up the mess later.
Right. And in essence, that truly exists now without the caveat of you being able to get your CCW in a state like California or New York, because law enforcement has gone all the way to the Supreme Court and said, we don't have a responsibility to protect you.
To protect
That's
you.
why I tell people that oftentimes law enforcement is more of an avenger than a protector. And people
Absolutely.
are taken aback by that. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, when do they come? They come after a crime has been committed. If somebody was
Yeah.
standing outside of your house, you could call them and say a suspicious person. They tell them, hey, keep walking, and they leave. No crime has been committed. But if somebody
Right.
kicks down your door and ties you up, takes everything in your house and leave, and you finally get untied and you call the cops, what are they didn't protect you per se, but they'll take the report and they'll
Right.
they need to do to try to find the perp or the criminal. So that's and like I said, my dad was a cop. He instilled that in me a long time ago, that your own personal safety is your responsibility. I have a story
Yeah.
very similar to yours because you know I remember my grandfather in Alabama putting a 12 gauge single shot shotgun at my shoulder when I was about 7, 8 years old when we were squirrel hunting, and he was like, stood back and he was like, he let me fire it, and I'll never forget how much that hurt. because it was one of those with the steel butt. It was some old timey shotgun, so it didn't have the nice rubber like my Mossberg have or any kind of recoil system. It was just straight
Right.
manhood. And my dad, I'm a hunter. I like basically bird hunting, but I've been involved with firearms similarly to you my entire life. And one aspect of it is, as being a black male, I'm a little bit nervous about this situation because Philando could still hit me hard when that happened because he did
Right.
everything the right way. I think, and I've seen white guys get crap for having, well, get shit. It was Irvine PD. This dude presented the officer with his license and his CCW card, and the officer proceeded to tell him, pull the gun and see what happens. You know, if you've passed that background check, if you've done, especially right now in California, if you've jumped through all the hoops and whatnot to get your CCW, obviously you haven't presented yourself as a threat to society and shouldn't be treated like that. And that was the
Right.
thing I got off Philando Castile, because if he had a record, if he had, you look at black men that have been killed by cops, one of the first things they're going to do is examine their background. And then, and that's not just for black men, that's for anybody.
Right.
They will examine your background. If you have any kind of criminality in it, that unfortunately for some people that will justify some aspects of your situation. But in
Absolutely.
essence, if you have your CCW, if you have passed a background check, everything that the government has set forth for you to qualify for these measures, you should be treated as such and respected as such because you have demonstrated. Now, I'm not saying they need to let their guard down. That's dumb,
Right.
you know, but they should conform to the situation at hand. If he's being civil, he's being respectful, he's keeping his hands where you can see him, he's doing all those things right, like Philando Castile did. I don't think there should be an issue, but like I said, it kind of makes me nervous.
I will be honest with you and say this, and because this is the same thing I teach in my CCW classes, is very frankly, you need to make sure that you help take the officer off edge. Okay.
Right.
The moment you're contacted, you need to help take that officer off edge. All right. Because, again, to be honest with you, I've sat through many briefings, I've sat through many bulletins, many conversations with many different people in many different aspects of law enforcement. I mean, all the way up to stars and bars. Okay.
Right.
And the one thing that I've never, and I kid you not, I've never heard was how to deal with someone when you come across someone who is legally carrying a concealed weapon.
Yeah.
There's never been any training
Right.
that I've seen, and I could be wrong. I'm not in everybody's briefing, but I've never seen that training happen ever on how to deal with someone who is legally carrying a concealed weapon. Illegally, all day long.
Right.
Legally, never seen that. Never seen it. Not once.
Now, do you think, because my personal opinion, I think everybody is that can legally own a firearm like you do will be able to get a CCW. I think every state shall issue, not may issue.
Correct.
I
Right.
firmly
I
believe.
agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you because, for instance, well, one of my grandmothers is 87 years old, right? Going to the grocery store, going to the pharmacy, going wherever, and she's by herself,
Right.
the likelihood of somebody running up on her in a state that allows for concealed carry, readily allows for it, they're going to think twice. I don't necessarily know if I want to get dumped on by grandma today, or she's got her head on the swivel or whatever else, right? I absolutely think everybody that can legally have a weapon should be able to get a concealed weapons permit if that's what they choose to do.
That's word. That's a funny you test on that as well, because my maternal grandmother pulled her legally own firearm on some drug dealers outside of her apartment in Whistler, Alabama, many years ago. And guess what? They left.
They never came back, did
They never
they?
came back because they never wanted to run up on my grandma Mary and her 38 special. And she's not the like my aunt. She's always ready as well. But that's what's I think in light of like the criminality that I've seen in California. Did you see that video in Hollywood of there were some fools that ran up on a dude and he was with two girls and they had shopping bags and they ran out with a gun and he pulled his own and he got one of them in the leg and fired at the other ones. But that's when you have, like I was saying earlier, when there's rounds coming downrange at you, your mentality might change.
Things change.
Yeah, because if you when you hear them zipping by you, and unfortunately, growing up in Southern California, I didn't by no means did I grow up in the hood, and I'm not even gonna front like I did. But I've been shot at directly twice, once in a car, once at a gas station, and I will never forget the sound of bullets impacting nor them whizzing by me to the effect that I don't I do know. Let me clarify. I do know I do not want that in my life because it was terrifying.
Absolutely.
And anybody that will tell you otherwise is a fucking liar. Excuse my French. But
No, that's just what it is. Yeah.
if you've ever been shot at, it's horrible.
It's a different ball game. Unfortunately, myself and a couple other people I know that very similar situations, you become desensitized to that, and that's one of the reasons why we teach the way we teach at Redstone is because we're teaching from experience.
Right.
We're teaching from the survivability factor of being involved in the shootout because the perpetrators that are coming to do harm to you or to your loved ones, they're only thinking one way, and that one way is as a perpetrator, as a predator, right? When that predator now becomes the prey, it changes the game. It changes 100%, and it changes like that.
It's like when you see lions attack a water buffalo, and all the rest of the water buffaloes come back, and they present themselves as a mass against those that less numbered lion pride, and they ended up turning the tables on them. So yeah, that's it's for me. One of those the episode where I got shot at in a car, a bullet. It was a 9mm because they ended up catching the guy, but it lodged in my headrest. Now, like 2 inches lower, it would have been in my neck, and if it hadn't killed me, I probably would have been paralyzed from the neck down. And because of that, I swore off 9mm for over 20 years of my life. I said it was a weak round. It wouldn't even go through my headrest. I will never pack a 9mm in my life. So my first pistol I bought was a 40 cal, and then I went to a 45, and I got nice with those two, and then I got a 9mm for shits and giggles. But now, because 9mm bullets are a lot more effective than they were back then, that was over 20 years ago. That's my upstairs go-to. My downstairs go-to is still either the Mossberg 598 or the 45. So that's my shooting story, and that would happen on a Saturday night in, of all places, that Cal State Fullerton where I got shot at one time. Wow. And I'm like, man, this is Fullerton, California. We used to go down there and we used to just be like bosses. There's nothing hard down here, but some brothers, I'll never forget that story where the party had already been broken up. And so we proceeded with the parking lot pimping. So we were just looking for some girls, and about 35 yards up, I see somebody, and his arm action is what attracted my attention. And he was just flailing about. And then when he brought his arm back down, as he was bringing it down, I saw the outline of a Glock that is unmistakable.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, holy shit, this fool has a gun.
Right.
So my homeboy, who's a loudmouth jackass, do not say shit to this motherfucker as we pass him, because we couldn't go any other way. And we get up to him, and he was like, "What's up?" And I look, and I didn't say nothing. I'm just trying to proceed forward. And my loudmouth jackass friend says, "What do you mean, what's up?" And I just looked at him. I was like, "Man, you're about to get killed, dude." This fool,
Right.
he was bold enough to just to have the gun out in front of everybody. And then so I get out of the traffic area, and I'm trying to break to a exit that I thought I could get out of on campus, and I see this fresh new fence. Then I turn around and look, and I see like a '83 white Oldsmobile coming directly at us. And my loudmouth jackass friend jumps up out of my sunroof and starts flipping them off and yelling stuff at him. I get out of the parking lot, and I made a right on State College, and they follow us, and then I hear popping. And I was like, oh, those fools are shooting in the air. And I turn around and look. It was three of us in the car, and my friend's on the passenger side back seat, and a round impacts above his right shoulder, knocking a little hole in the window. And next thing you know, it sounded like the car was being hit with a hammer.
Yep.
And
It's very much like pelt. It's
yeah,
pelting sounds. Yeah.
so I drop as low as I could go, and I just floor it, and we just go. And long story short, I pull over and I look, and we're looking at the car, and it shot the hell up. And then
Right.
my friend points to my headrest, and there's a impact round right in the middle of my headrest. And that's, like I mentioned before, 2 inches lower. I don't know what would happen, but
Right.
yeah, that's why 9mm back then was weak. At any rate,
Right.
so what the news was reporting was there was a lot of gun sales during the pandemic.
Yep.
And how many, like, what percentage would you say of new buyers did you realize at your store during the pandemic?
Probably 85%,
Wow,
if
huge.
not more. It could be a little bit more,
Right.
but honestly, I can safely say 85%.
Now, what percentage of those people followed up with training?
For the first, damn, I'm about to say this, but for the first year, a
Uh-huh.
good 70%,
Wow,
a good 70%.
that's awesome.
And we continue to get some more of the same people that, matter of fact, we had a young man that came in yesterday. I met him the first time almost 2 years ago.
Hmm.
He got his gun from us. He finally came back in to get a class.
Nice.
So we're still we're getting some tricklers coming back in.
Uh-huh.
But honestly, for us, it was a good 70%.
Yeah, because there's one thing that I think a lot of people don't know is that California, as far as gun ownership in the United States, is only second behind Texas. So Florida can suck it. Virginia can suck it. Everybody, basically, California could invade all the way to New Mexico, Colorado, because I don't know about Nebraska and Oklahoma. The fools are weird. But basically, California alone, we can invade the entire West Coast and turn this into like the second largest, instead of the fifth largest economy, we could turn this into like the second largest economy in the world if we so chose to in California.
Right.
Led by our great governor, Mr. Gavin Newsom. Now, I'm not trying to pin you down, but I'm going to tell you straight up, and everybody straight up, I think Gavin Newsom sits down to pee. So I'm not taking any advice from any man that sits down to pee and wipes back to front. So that's my personal opinion of Gavin Newsom, but he's not been a friend to your particular business model, I should say.
Not at all. Not at all. And we're battling some things that he just put in place about 2 weeks ago. And it's mind-boggling. It is absolutely mind-boggling. And I'm gonna say this. My wife is gonna probably kick me in the ass later, but I have been talking about it for over a year and a half.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I need to make a run for governor. We need to fix this thing. We need to change this around.
I'll back you because I tried to make my little social media run for governor prior in this recall. I wasn't. I think Republicans truly and absolutely fucked up by backing Larry Elder. And I will say this for one reason. This is California. There is no part of California, even California Republicans are not Texas Republicans.
They're,
They're
they're,
not
they're
Georgia.
a different breed.
They're not. So why on God's green earth would you back a Trump type Republican? When Gray Davis got recalled, Arnold Schwarzenegger stepped up as a true middle of the road populist moderate Republican that appealed to a vast majority of disenfranchised voters. That was the game plan.
Right.
You bring somebody in here that, for me, he calls himself the sage of South Central. I call him the sage of Sambo. And I know, like I said, I'm not trying to, this is my opinion, not your opinion. Just
Sure.
for people to understand. Larry Elder did not represent California values in the slightest.
Yeah, he didn't represent us well at all.
And for him to go up there and go to every place but the inner cities, because basically there's 4 regions that dictate what happens in California: San Diego, Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and the Bay Area. They dictate the politics of California. For them to push Larry Elder to the forefront completely, a matter of fact, when he announced he was running, at that point, Gavin Newsom was 51 to 54% in favor of the recall. And what he did was over a 10 percentage point shift to not favor the recall just by his position as the #1 candidate alone. And that's what really pissed me off about this whole recall process. Not, I think it should stay the same, because I think the will of the people, if you make it harder for people to recall their governor, I don't necessarily think the system is broken. But we need to have candidates that understand this electorate. And Larry Elder was not him. It was not it, so to speak. So that's, with that being said, can you tell everybody how to reach you and where they can find your store, your products, and everything right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the social media side, it's Redstone Firearms, Redstone Jonathan, Jonathan, and then Redstone Creative Shop. Redstone Creative Shop is our creative shop, basically. Our patches, our t-shirts, our hats, our merch. That's where you can go there and see all the new designs and things like that. Our website is redstonefirearms.com, and very easily you can reach us at on email at jonathan@redstonefirearms.com, geneva@redstonefirearms.com, jared@redstonefirearms, and so on and so on. We are highly reachable. If you call a shop and you don't get through, you leave a message or shoot us a text message, we'll get back to you. We try our best. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 323-440-1114, 323-440-1114.
And we're going to include, in conclusion of this podcast, we're going to include a couple slides where you guys can see how to reach them. And especially if you're in SoCal, but do you do nationwide? Can you ship nationwide?
We can ship everywhere. We ship all over this United States.
Okay.
Every state, including New York, upstate, of course, but including New York, we've gotten some things out there for you.
Okay. So I want to encourage everybody to go to this business and patronize it, because they're doing things for the right reason. They're not doing things in any kind of biased way. They're doing things because, from what I've seen, they want people to be trained, ready, and prepared as all Americans should be. So this is the type of business. This is why I chose you guys as my initial podcast, because go follow them on Instagram and you'll see why. You'll see they're about this lifestyle, they're about this business, and they're doing this for the right reasons, which is probably the most important factor to me. So I want to thank you, Jonathan. Tell
I
Geneva I
appreciate you.
said hello, and I appreciate her staying in contact with me. And live free or die, my brother. We'll be in touch
Absolutely. Do
soon.
the same. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out to us and let us know.
All right, cool.
I appreciate
So
you. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Firearms are a supporting, constructive framework of liberty. They ensure all those with ill intent have something to lose. Gun control in the United States began with making sure black people did not have the right to own guns. Ronald Reagan codified gun control in his role as governor of California and president of the United States in direct response to the Black Panthers exercising their Second Amendment rights in the face of tyranny, and a citizen perpetrating violence upon the government. Since the Constitution was ratified, the United States government has sought to rein in the rights of citizens. See the Whiskey Rebellion. The Bill of Rights has been chipped away at and nullified under the guise of safety and security, while at the same time those charged with our safety and security have gone all the way to the Supreme Court to fight the citizens, and that they have no obligation to provide you protection nor defend you. To me, I don't really care if you arm yourself or not. But in light of all the threats we all face, you should not have the power nor dominion of how I choose to arm and defend myself and my loved ones. I will not take advice from men that sit down to pee like Gavin Newsom on how I should protect my family when he cowers behind men with firearms he calls weapons of war. If his bodyguards carry weapons of war, who is he at war with? Live free or die.